So today we are doing something a little bit different. I'm releasing the audio version of my book, Relationship Sales at Scale. And since you are a devoted listener / watcher / whatever medium you're going through right now, I wanted to give you the book for free via the podcast / YouTube channel. Each part of the book, which is divided up into 5 parts, is going to be available and free on our site / podcast / YouTube over the next 5 weeks for a limited time. And coming up after this short intro, you are going to hear me reading part 1. All that said, if you'd prefer to get access to the whole book in its entirety in whichever format you prefer, Kindle, paperback, Audible, all of the above, you can do that by going to Amazon, and we'll have that linked up below in the show notes. So before I get to the reading, here's why I wrote this book. I wrote Relationship Sales at Scale because candidly, I was pissed off. As owners of agencies and B2B service companies, we all know that we need to develop reliable and repeatable business development practices, ones that scale beyond referrals and unpredictable sources of new business so that we can achieve our goals, whether that is growth, acquisition, or simply peace of mind. In pursuit of reliability and pipeline, first as an agency salesperson and then later running Sales Schema, where we've partnered with over 100 agencies since 2014 to help build pipeline, we found that almost everybody, including ourselves originally, are misdirected about the options available to them. From a 50,000-foot view, we are told that there are basically 2 options for winning clients. The first, in a nutshell, is inbound marketing alone. While it can be effective, often this looks like content, ads, and other things where we are either waiting around for prospects to find us and usually constantly paying tech companies for the privilege of interacting with our prospects, who are people we might be able to help right now if only they knew we existed. The other way is cold outreach and spam. This is where we see many companies annoying and alienating their finite markets, and they're going in cold and implying or even outright demanding that people buy their wares immediately or else go away. Both of these approaches are losing strategies, especially in crowded and noisy and skeptical markets where the scarce resource is not more information, it's actually trust. So I wrote this book because if your business development process is consultative, you need to know that there's a third path. This is one that has empowered our clients to build reliable business development systems through leveraged yet tasteful and targeted outreach. So what's inside and how did I write this book? The seeds for our trademarked Relationship Sales at Scale methodology were planted from watching how the most effective agency and B2B service executives work their networks. And through a decade of battle testing and developing thousands of campaigns, we basically digitized and scaled this old school tradecraft into a system. And all the book's stories, strategies, and hands-on resources were developed again through thousands of campaigns conducted since 2014 to help clients get hard-to-reach prospects on the line, including the leaders of some of the largest companies on earth. If you stick around through the next 5 weeks and all 5 parts, or you want to jump the line and get it on Amazon, you're going to learn how to balance personalization and scale to achieve reliable and predictable growth. You're going to learn how to basically condense 5 years of networking into one campaign. You're going to learn a 1-week campaign for driving warm referrals based on your existing network. You're going to learn how to de-risk conversations in a leveraged way with skeptical prospects by finding people that share commonalities instead of just regurgitating publicly available information, which is usually what is referred to when we hear personalization. You're going to learn how to divide up sales and prospecting duties, even if your team is small, to avoid burnout. And you're going to get help from dozens of copy examples, campaign strategies, and online resources so that you can get moving fast. So first, in part 1 of 5, I'm going to cover the few big shifts and changes that should cause you to rethink fundamentally how you approach prospecting and sales in a consultative B2B environment. Again, this is going to be available for a limited time, or if you prefer to jump the line and get access to the whole book in whatever format, you can do that by going to Amazon, and we'll link that up. So without further ado, let's get into part 1 and stay tuned next week for part 2. Welcome to the Digital Agency Growth Podcast. I'm your host, Dan Englander. Relationship Sales at Scale: How to Find Your Virtual Tribe and Reliably Grow Your Professional Service Business by Dan Englander. Read by the author. Intro. New school meets old school. It's 5:30 a.m. and I roll out of bed, shower, slap on a button-down and slacks, and hop on the N train to Midtown Manhattan for yet another roundtable networking group. The fluorescent lights scorch my eyes as I settle into an office chair alongside a dozen other salespeople and executives. The catered lox and bagel spread and free-flowing coffee are the only things keeping me alive. I go around the horn and each participant rattles off the same canned taglines and service descriptions we've heard hundreds of times. I'm Spanky and I'm with Dewey, Cheatham and Howe, the victim's first law firm, for example. Then it's my turn. I'm Dan and I'm with XYZ agency. We create high-quality animated videos for enterprise brands. We produce commercials, explainer videos, and internal communications videos. I'm looking to meet marketing and HR leaders at companies above $50 million in revenue. We have strong case studies in telecom, healthcare, and B2B software, and I appreciate any intros or ideas. After 2 years of old-school in-person networking and dozens of meandering coffee dates plus similar experiences at trade shows, I had won just 2 clients. Not a great track record. Maybe I was bad at networking, but I'm not so sure. All of my peers who sold complex services, including salespeople and executives in marketing agencies, creative service companies, consulting, and other rarefied areas, described similar experiences. We were specific about our targets, and we had the chops, yet our bottom lines were unmoved. Yet, we kept at it. At least we were making friends and learning new things. It's not that the group didn't want to help, they couldn't. We sold weird stuff to rare people. At the same time, we knew the group could be profitable because we saw that many leads were traded and tons of business was closed by one particular sector. Real estate professionals who included agents, brokers, lawyers, and title insurance people. The real estate posse passed leads like kids trading baseball cards, and they racked up deals constantly. As a real estate professional, the competition to land a seat in the group was fierce, and participants were booted regularly for no-shows or failing to produce leads. After a few years and some perspective, I understand why the real estate posse was so successful. They built a tribe. Here's how their tribal dynamic paid off. Let's say a broker introduced the lawyer in the group to a young couple seeking to buy a condo. The lawyer then won their business and introduced them to the title insurance person. The title insurance person introduced them to the financial planner. The financial planner introduced the lawyer to a high net worth person who wants to sue the mayor. The high net worth person goes to market for a condo and needs a broker. The antelope eats the grass. Elton John starts singing and the circle of life continues. A localized and in-person networking environment was perfect for the real estate posse because property-related transactions tend to play out locally and in person. The complex service salespeople, on the other hand, were trying to play basketball on a football field, dribbling balls that did not bounce back. Since those early mornings, I've been fortunate to get a lot more perspective and experience. As the first employee and new business lead, I went on to help the video business achieve 7-figure revenues, including 16 Fortune 500 accounts. From there, I founded Sales Schema, a fractional new business team for marketing agencies and B2B service companies. And at the time of this recording, we've secured tens of thousands of prospect relationships for clients and helped generate millions in lifetime revenue won across many industries. When I look back on the fluorescent grind, I wonder, even if the work paid off massively, would it have been worth the opportunity costs? Weren't there better alternatives to the 5:30 a.m. wake-up calls? The answer in a much more digitized world is a resounding yes. What if you could achieve 80% of the trust, market intelligence, and influence of belly-to-belly relationship building without planes, trains, cars, and commutes? See Part 2. What if you could condense the upside of 5 years of networking into a single push of a button email blast? See Part 3. What if you could deliberately build a referral engine for getting warm introductions to your best and most lucrative clients in a matter of weeks instead of waiting around years to stumble upon the right connector? See Part 3 as well. And what if you could reconnoiter your existing team and resources into a system that reliably closes complex, multi-stage deals? See Parts 4 and 5. Once you remove geographic constraints and combine old school, tribe-based trust with the modern promise of digitally empowered scale, you will shatter your growth ceiling. While scale and relationship-driven influence are mainstays of consumer marketing in the B2B world, there is only a tiny and exclusive cadre of sophisticated salespeople and executives and figured out how to harness these dynamics profitably. Combining the old school with the new, the rest of this book will teach you how to implement relationship sales at scale so you can build a reliable, complex service-focused new business process for the digital age. Access the online resources. Throughout the book, I reference a variety of online resources, including video interviews, spreadsheets, and templates, which you can access via the below link after signing up. Simply go to saleschema.com/audible. Again, that's saleschema.com/audible. How to read or listen to this book. This book is roughly half conceptual and half actionable. Per the conceptual, if you're like me, you're probably eager to get off and running with this or that tactic. But it's important to take a breath and understand the dynamics of a high skepticism market. Once you do that, you will understand why various tactics work, and more importantly, you will be able to come up with your own campaigns. Given a little time, the ideas you come up with yourself will probably work better than anything I cover here, so the context is worth it. What's inside? Part 1, too much noise. Part 1 lays out the few big shifts and changes that should cause you to fundamentally rethink how you open doors and sell to prospects, especially at the top of the funnel. Part 2, how to keep your pipeline full by balancing personalization and scale. Part 2 covers what this rethinking looks like in terms of balancing personalization and scale so you can de-risk conversations, keep your pipeline full, and scale reliably. Part 3, how to build effective campaigns. Part 3 is the how chapter, and this is where the rubber meets the road. You will get list building strategies, campaign and copy examples, case studies, and other hands-on resources. Side note, if you're reading this book on a beach, I recommend pausing on this section and circling back to it when you're in doing mode. Part 4, the 21st century sales team. Part 4 is the who chapter, and it covers the right division of duties and team structure for implementing relationship sales at scale and maintaining consistency long-term, even if your team is small or you're solo. Part 5, the perfect day sales process. Part 5 is the blocking and tackling section on closing deals. I argue that bottom of funnel sales, or in other words, the process of selling to prospects once they are interested and a fit, has not changed a ton over the years. Success is more about practice, optimization, and timeless best practices combined with a few digital age upgrades. This chapter is somewhat folksy, and its Zig Ziglar-inspired structure is made up of free-floating stories and metaphors. Don't worry, at least half of this section is immediately actionable, and it will give you a script template and if this, then that scenarios you can use in your process right away. Who is this for? I put professional services in the subtitle of this book for a couple of reasons. It's a widely used term for a variety of complex service offerings, even those that might accompany products and technology. And many of the lessons in this book were learned selling marketing agency offerings, often into large organizations. That said, even if quote-unquote professional services doesn't describe you perfectly, this book will be useful if you're a B2B sales professional, including owners and entrepreneurs, and your process is consultative. Usually this means that your offering is not for mass consumption. Going further, this book will hit the spot if you are frustrated with your lack of results and you're ready to try something new and slightly unorthodox to break through to the next level. One of the most common ways this frustration plays out is in the form of not enough qualified prospects in your pipeline. Maybe you feel like you would knock the ball out of the park if only you got enough at-bats. But you're not sure why the fastballs down the middle fail to materialize like they used to. That's the last sports metaphor, I promise. If that's you, the next section will explain why most modern sales tactics fail to convert skeptical prospects and how you can do better. Part 1, too much noise. When I was studying music at UC Santa Cruz, the professor asked the class a question that sticks with me. How do you define noise? As smart-ass college juniors, we all started overthinking it, spouting out long-winded definitions involving frequency and the prefrontal cortex. His Yoda-like answer was simple. Noise is any unwanted sound. In a world of high competition for both business and attention, how much of your sales and marketing efforts overall are noise? And how can you go from noise to the stuff that actually builds profitable relationships? Most busy professionals describe 80% or more of their inboxes, phone calls, and social media feeds as spam, and many spend hours filtering and sifting through this junk, yet almost no one admits that they are part of the problem. I'll admit it, for a time anyway. In the early days here at Sales Schema, working with a variety of freelancers and partners, we tried every outreach tactic and channel under the sun to win meetings for our clients, typically with decision makers in mid to large organizations. To keep the pipelines full, we sent emails, made phone calls, and did LinkedIn outreach, working as if we were the client themselves. While there were some wins and we lined up meetings in high places, overall it was crickets, and sometimes we went weeks without meetings. Clients became irritated, and I absolutely dreaded my inbox every morning. We faced attrition, and we had to lay people off. One cold winter, after firing a friend, I woke up to a burning rash on my stomach that would be diagnosed as shingles. To get results for clients, we looked for every outside perspective we could find, and we compared notes with everyone in the know: salespeople, consultants, indirect competitors, and software specialists, among others. To get decision makers to agree to meet with our clients, we threw a lot of spaghetti at the wall, and here are a few things we tried. We set up complex funnels involving email, LinkedIn, phone, and direct mail. We sent prospects content, including case studies, videos, testimonials, and other examples. We bought access to expensive lists and databases. We tinkered with dozens of software products. We hired a team of dialing for dollar sales reps to chase prospects. We learned from every outreach expert we could find. Some experiments kind of worked for a while, but nothing was sustainable. Thankfully, our outreach campaigns acted like a giant satellite, pulling in data from the heavens, and we were able to lap up a stream of market feedback in the form of written responses from a diverse array of prospects. Over time, the feedback became consistent, clear, and at this point, unsurprising. There's too much competition and noise. This is especially true when it comes to marketing agencies, professional digital services, and/or any company that can be started via a laptop and a Wi-Fi connection. And this description now covers a big chunk of the global economy. In response to all the noise, we swerved away from the high-activity sales grind and turned toward white-glove outreach. We spent many hours researching individual accounts and writing completely customized letters to prospects, each completely unique from the one that preceded it. Each piece of outreach, be it over email, LinkedIn, direct mail, or cold call, was grounded in market understanding and supposed signals, such as people posting on job sites, news results, and social media activity. We were able to book sales meetings from this white glove approach, and the no's were polite and friendly, so we chugged along with it for a while, but then we hit a wall. The problem was output volume. Since each and every email was handwritten and each prospect was researched individually, we were only able to contact a few prospects per day. And if our timing was off, our prospect had recently moved companies without updating their info, or countless other issues came up, all the work went down the drain. We were left with no good answer to the modern prospecting problem, and things were looking bad, but we were determined to find a way. We were contracted to run campaigns for a Bay Area-based branding agency that had been around for nearly 20 years and had strong specialization in the tech industry. They featured logos for almost every major software company on their homepage, plus the two founders were skilled and well-connected salespeople. The company survived on referrals, and since the partners were actively looking to get acquired so one of them could retire, they knew they had a problem. They needed to build scalable new business channels in a relatively short period of time. So we tried a lot of tactics described above, which, while seemingly sophisticated, all amounted to going in cold. After nearly 6 months, we generated only a handful of lukewarm meetings. It was frustrated because we had presented their services and case studies in every possible way, including dozens of permutations of different features and benefits, and nothing worked. We were at a loss. Given the agency's strong specialization and track record, if the usual playbook didn't work for them, who would it work for? Then we thought, what if the old playbook is broken? What if all of the usual sales tactics, be they automated or handcrafted, were doing a version of the same thing? Making noise and hard selling skeptical prospects in a low trust environment. Since we had nothing to lose and expected to be fired on any given morning, we turned over the table and took our clients tribal. We pitched an idea for tapping into their extended personal network or tribe, and thankfully, they were patient and gracious enough to let us give it a shot, which ultimately paid off massively for them and eventually transformed our entire outlook and process. Instead of yelling at a brick wall by chasing and pitching decision makers cold, we flipped the script and identified the types of prospects who are already likely to speak to our client based on business and/or personal commonalities. After all, referrals were our client's best historic source of new business, as they are for many firms. So what if we could simply strengthen and expand the same tactics that got them to the dance? We built a custom list of C-levels and VP prospects who had once worked at a large account our client had partnered with for years, but had drifted onto another target account, and we sent a simple 5-line email, paraphrased here. Hey Lisa, how have you been? Saw you used to work at BigCo, and we did some great work for them over the years, so maybe we crossed paths? Looks like you're doing compelling work at Acme now, and I would love to see how we might be able to collaborate. Open to a call? What was special about this approach is that it gelled with how our clients and most old school executives work their networks when they have the rare motivation and time to do personalized outreach. By batching up the process and doing it for them, we remove the tediousness that makes everything fall apart. With relationship-driven outreach at scale, the results were incredible. On a list of around 1,000, we saw above 60% open rates and a 10-20% response rates compared to the sub 3% rates most large and ineffective campaigns experience. More importantly, while most campaigns are filled with irritated go-aways from prospects, almost all of the responses were warm and positive. This translated into dozens of quality meetings and eventually a multi-six-figure deal with a large financial institution. Our client went on to achieve their dream as they were acquired by a major consulting firm. From this experience and similar victories, over time, we moved almost all of our campaigns to this new model, an approach that works many times better than cold outreach, especially when it comes to opening doors with skeptical buyers. It's one thing to give you a detached case study and tactic, but context is that which is scarce and valuable. And once you have it, you'll be empowered to make this process your own. Lessons from Gene. The following story might sound familiar, as it's one I hear at least a few times each month. You get an email from a prospect at a company that's been on your radar for a couple of years. The organization is a dream account, and they want you to pitch on their upcoming request for proposal. You rarely participate in big pitches, but this is different. You've done a ton of work in their vertical, and you know you can knock it out of the park. This seems like a golden opportunity. You interview your prospect at length. It turns out that they've worked with several companies like yours over the years, and they endured mediocre and negative experiences. That said, it's been a while, and they know they need help, and they're upbeat and optimistic about getting a positive result this time. You ask more questions and find out what these results should look like specifically. When you're ready, you pull in specialists to craft the proposal. Through many phone and email exchanges, you engender a champion in your prospect, and he sings your praises up the line to the organization's management team. You build and present relevant case studies, testimonials, and other sales collateral, showing your buyer all the work you've done in their field and demonstrating exactly why you're the best fit. There are late nights and several rounds of revisions on the customized portion of your proposal. After all, this is a big investment for your prospect, and you want to make it obvious that your team is the best choice. You send your prospect articles written by your marketing department as well as outside thought leaders to position your approach as the best industry standard based on prevailing trends. You do everything right in regard to sales best practices. You only present proposals live, and you ensure all decision makers are in the room. You understand when, where, and how the company will select its vendor. You're excited about this one. You start planning for the engagement, and you daydream about the investments you will make from the revenue windfall. But after 3 weeks, your prospect goes silent, and emails go unanswered. Your team checks in on you, and you calmly reassure them. You don't have the heart to admit your gut feeling out loud. Finally, your prospect gets back to you and lets you know that they, quote, went in a different direction, unquote. You're crestfallen, bewildered, and dejected. You invested so many resources that it could have gone to better things. You chase down your prospect and finally get him on the phone. He tells you that the management team ultimately selected a local vendor they had known for years. He's sorry, and he promises to find a way to collaborate in the future. In frustration, you say to yourself, they're idiots to have snubbed you over such a meaningless and borderline corrupt connection. They're incompetent to have opted for a relationship over the benefits you laid out so precisely in your proposal. Who knows whether your prospect ultimately made the right choice, but maybe there was more method than madness to their decision-making process, even if this method was subconscious. What if all the supposed value you offered, designed to build desire for your offering and expressed through mountains of information, amounted to noise when the force that sealed the deal was something else entirely? What actually happened here? A book from the 1960s can help us answer that question. As a spoiler, no, the solution is not going local. Far from it, as you'll learn in later chapters. Gene Schwartz was an old-school copywriter who crafted famous campaigns. Among many taglines, Gene crafted celebrated catchphrases like, "Give me 15 minutes and I'll give you a superpower memory," which resulted in the launch of the first book of the memory expert Harry Lorraine and inspired advertisers for years to come. A certain global insurance company comes to mind. Gene published 10 books, including Breakthrough Advertising, a timeless textbook for advanced copywriters and marketers. Breakthrough Advertising is full of useful lessons, but there is one that is particularly powerful. You can't unsee it, sort of like you're a fish identifying water for the first time. The 5 stages of market sophistication. This is where Gene takes us through the buyer journey on a macro historical level for any given product, service, or solution. I've also seen the stages defined as awareness or skepticism, which are qualities that increase in severity at each subsequent stage. These 5 stages are just as real today as they were in the 60s, but for reasons I'll cover, products and services move through each one a lot faster than they once did. Stage 1, unaware. The market is not aware it has a problem or need. There is essentially no competition, and prospects have to be told your offering exists. Think of the early days of new inventions like Facebook, the car, or the first advertising agency. Stage 2, problem aware. The market understands the problem your offering solves, and there are some competitors who make similar claims and promises. Copy and advertising tend to become lengthier as companies work to communicate differentiators. Think of an early sunglass brand progressing from "these keep the sun out of your eyes" to "these keep the sun out of your eyes and they're waterproof." From my own experience, I associate this stage with social media marketing agencies circa 2010, who won major brands by claiming to be cooler and more edgy than the competition. Stage 3, solution aware. Stage 3 is the point at which the previous claims won't work anymore. This is the how stage, where the mechanism of action is front and center. Schwartz writes, if your market is at the stage where they've heard all the claims and all their extremes, then mere repetition or exaggeration won't work any longer. What this market needs now is a new device to make all these claims become fresh and believable. In other words, a new mechanism, a new way to make the old promise work. A different process, a fresh chance, a brand new possibility of access where only disappointment has resulted before. I associate this stage with Silicon Valley companies disrupting legacy industries. Think of pitches for new products and well-understood categories that offer believable reasons for dramatically better pricing. For example, we are able to offer the same quality for a lower price because we cut out the middleman via XYZ process. Stage 4, product aware. Stage 4 is an arms race for prospects' hearts and minds. Competitors are at each other's throats, there's more direct competition than ever, and buyers are constantly comparing options and making value judgments. As Gene argues, at this stage, marketers should simply elaborate or enlarge upon the successful mechanism, make it easier, quicker, surer, allow it to solve more of the problem, overcome old limitations, promise better benefits. You are beginning a stage of embellishment similar to the second stage of sophistication. So I think of this as stage 2, but on steroids. And as an example, the all-out war between ride-sharing apps comes to mind. Stage 5, most aware. Stage 5 is where the emphasis shifts from focusing on the product to focusing on the customer. As Gene says, you are dealing here with the problem of bringing your prospect into your ad, not through desire, but through identification. Think of Apple's approach to identifying with their tribe in opposition to the PC, or the cozy pub that serves the same 5 beers and they play all the music you love. Most importantly, think of your own complex service business right now. At stage 5, the scarce resource is no longer information, it's trust. As a disclaimer, these stages are not the same for every buyer. Our agency clients who sell digital marketing services to growth stage e-commerce brands will rightly put such prospects through a different sales process than they might use for a Rust Belt manufacturer whose website was built in 1995. That said, for most of us nowadays, it's all about the most aware prospects. Although rarely named explicitly, the most aware group is ubiquitous because customers and markets move through each stage more quickly than ever, landing at their most aware final destination sooner than they would have in previous eras. This dynamic makes sense when you consider the higher speeds at which customers research and consume products in the digital age, which simultaneously empowers entrepreneurs to build new products and services faster and more often. In the sales world, the ubiquity of the most aware prospects is backed up by Dan Pink, who, in To Sell is Human, observed that there is now much more information symmetry between buyers and sellers when in previous eras, sellers had a major informational edge, which encouraged the predatory used car tactics most of us revile. Stage 5 explains why relationship at scale works so well for our complex services clients when all else tends to fail. We are simply targeting and reaching out to prospects in a way that allows them to build trust through identification, which comes from feelings of community and tribe. On the other hand, when salespeople lose deals at the 11th hour or fail to open doors entirely, it's usually because they assume, consciously or not, that their prospects simply need more desire, which usually means supplying more information when the scarce resource is trust. You see this all the time when complex service businesses yell about features, benefits, bells, whistles, and collateral that, while not unimportant, becomes noise to most aware prospects. This is exactly what happened with the failed proposal pitch at the beginning of this section. For service businesses, desire-focused features and benefits are rarely enough to seal the deal. Here are a few examples of faulty assumptions I've seen in real pitch situations. Since we are based in the Midwest, we can outcompete the New York agencies on price. We leverage a giant database of 100,000 influencers to build award-winning campaigns. Our team is composed of former musicians, artists, and creatives, so we know how to think outside of the box. As Gene observed, sales claims like those above are designed to build desire, not trust, and it's the latter that closes deals with the most aware. Complex services are not new and shiny objects in the way software and mechanical inventions are. Going further, any service you can start with a laptop and an internet connection is typically selling to prospects who have been burned before, or are at least experienced and skeptical, even if they might not be experts in your specific area. You might launch a product or service in an emerging space that's enticing at face value for a time, but in a matter of months, the space becomes well understood and crowded since almost anyone can claim expertise, even when they lack it. In the marketing and advertising space, pick any once novel service from the last decade and you will see crowds of competition. Think social media management, influencer marketing, programmatic advertising, chatbots. Given that trust is the scarce resource, your products and services must immediately establish you as someone who can be trusted to solve big, timeless, and lucrative problems and not short-term tactical needs, even if you sell just a couple of solutions in that effort. As author and marketing thought leader Robert Rose argues, the greatest value you can offer lives at either end of the smile graph, which he described on an episode of our digital agency growth podcast and was gracious enough to let me reprint below. You can find an enlarged version of the smile graph in the resources section, which again, you can get to by going to salesschema.com/audible. Again, that's salesschema.com/audible. While the graph centers on the marketing and advertising category, you can broad frame the concepts to other industries. The top left of the smile graph is where the highly paid thinkers and organizers live. Strategy guides just about everything else, so as you emphasize the products and services that create a roadmap for solving big lucrative problems, your clients will see you as Professor X. You can charge top dollar, and you will keep them for years to come. The middle of the smile graph, on the other hand, is the commodity dead zone. This is where undifferentiated labor lives, and for better or worse, workers make much less than thinkers and leaders. The middle is being squeezed by increasing competition from a global workforce and robots. Dead zone examples: web design and development, content creation, community management, basic customer service, media management. The top right of the smile graph is the measurement section, which is where the highly paid thinkers and leaders kick back into gear. This area might include conversion rate optimization or CRO, analytics, predictive measurement, and other intelligence that helps companies make big and expensive decisions. It will be tough in the eyes of your clients for you to transition from the middle stage dead zone back to the high value sections, kind of like being friend zoned. So it's better to stay out of the middle to begin with. Just imagine this interaction. You, hey client, may we craft you a strategy to overhaul your social media marketing and integrate it with broader business goals? Client, aren't you the guys who send out tweets for us on Wednesdays? Sorry, we're pretty busy with other initiatives right now. If you're in the middle zone, don't worry, you don't necessarily have to blow up your business and reinvent it. In part 5, you will learn an effective sales process inspired by successful firms that position themselves at the high-value ends of the smile graph, even though their core service lives in the middle zone. Hopefully in this section, you've learned how your prospect's most aware status, as observed by Gene Schwartz, should impact how you communicate with them. And before you can sell, you first have to pry open the door, which so many of us struggle with. Differentiators for complex service businesses are, well, complex, and communicating them requires subtlety and a high level of attention, which means that your prospects have to care enough to tune in. Featuring case studies, sales collateral, and other proof elements on your site are table stakes, not unlike a business card. No one cares about them unless you don't have them. Leading with product-related differentiators in your outreach is like throwing pebbles at a brick wall. Again, the scarce resource is trust, not desire or the information that is meant to fuel it. The good news is that opening doors with most aware prospects is simpler and easier than you might think. You have to build enough trust to de-risk the conversation. After all, the most aware are sick and tired of plowing through more information, and a conversation with another human can be far more palatable. The rest of this book will teach you how to de-risk conversations over and over again so you can keep your pipeline full and scale reliably. More importantly, your close rates will improve because you will enter each situation with a higher level of identification and trust. The 3 revenue channels. From a 50,000-foot view, there are 3 non-mutually exclusive channels for opening doors and growing your business, and each channel can feed the others, as we will cover. Number 1, your orbit. The prospects who know, like, and trust you already. Examples: referrals, friends of friends, networking acquaintances. Advantages: you start with trust. Prospects are typically far along in the sales process when they are introduced to you. Challenges: opportunities and growth are limited. If everyone in your market already knows, likes, and trusts you, you would not be reading this book. The inconsistent nature of over-relying on your existing orbit can lead to feast, famine, and stagnation. Number 2, inbound. This is the gradually expanding force of gravity that extends just outside your orbit and attracts new prospects. Examples: content, public speaking, podcasts, online communities, advertising. Advantages: prospects come to you. And if they consume your content, you build trust and authority. Challenges: your pull expands gradually and inbound channels can take a long time to ramp up. Not everyone who knocks on your door is a fit, and qualification takes time and resources. Volatility and platform risk. You can be priced out and competition kills profits. More on that later. Number 3, outbound. You are the one who knocks, and you build relationships with your prospects by contacting them proactively via channels like email, LinkedIn, phone, or direct mail. Challenges: only 3% of the market is actively searching for a solution. Even if this figure might vary, most of the prospects who take a meeting with you won't be able to buy from you right away, so your sales cycle will take longer and will require forethought. Advantages: you build the relationship proactively before your competitors do, and you guide the decision-making process. You decide who you work with and contact only those companies who are a great fit and avoid wasting time and resources on qualification, or at least as much of it. You own your outreach process, and it's not subject to the whims of tech companies and ad auctions. All of these channels are tied together and feed off each other. If you email a prospect to request a meeting and she saw your ad the day before, the chances are better that she will respond and take that meeting. Ideally, you have at least some coverage and diversification in each of the above areas. For many successful organizations, this looks like 1 to a few big inbound marketing projects like a podcast, an active blog, or a guest post partnership. For example, at Sales Schema, our inbound marketing centers on the Digital Agency Growth podcast, and a few big initiatives each year like webinars, event sponsorships, and this book. The problem is that too many salespeople think they have to be everywhere and that they need all of their ducks in a row before contacting their prospects. So they write articles, tinker with software and CRMs and ad campaigns, and wring their hands. It's not that inbound marketing is not useful or important. It's just a question of emphasis and what percentage of the pie you divide between inbound and outbound. If you're a busy salesperson or executive or your team is small, where should you invest the lion's share of your time and resources? Ending the social media hangover. There came a time in my late 20s and early 30s when excessive partying and hangovers stopped being worth it. With social media, it's like we're all suffering the same perpetual hangover, but we rarely change our lifestyles. We just treat it with more binge drinking as midnight whiskey shots become morning mimosas. Don't worry, I'm not going to drag you through a contrived rant about how social media is stealing your attention and feeding you impossible standards about abdominal muscles and vacation homes. Hazards like those are well known at this point. This is about your business, where the influence of social media is just as insidious, but much less talked about. Companies like LinkedIn and Facebook rival industrial superpowers of previous eras like US Steel or Standard Oil as measured by market cap, profitability, and political power. And for our purposes, throughout this section, we can also define social media more broadly as other people's platforms. Underneath the tech giants are the mini brands, software companies, agencies, and consultants who specialize exclusively in selling products and services via social networks. Perhaps you're one of them. And alongside the social sellers are the thousands of publishers encompassing podcasts, blogs, and publications devoted to social marketing. All of the above compose a planetary star-level gravitational pull, constantly making the case that you must invest your resources on social or else perish. Just try Googling B2B social media marketing and you will find dozens of articles yelling about how most companies suck at social media. At a certain point, we have to ask, might this suckiness be because it's not the best approach? While ROI data can be highly contextual, the numbers seem to bear this out, and at a minimum suggests that social is far from the best option for B2B marketers and salespeople. According to a report by Chief Marketer, outreach via email is the highest ROI channel for B2B marketers with a reported 50% return, while social media landed in 5th place at a 23% return, and reports from other researchers echo similar findings. The social pull is hard to shake off, and it's harmful because it leads businesses to overcomplicate just about everything and waste untold time and resources. Every week, our team talks with yet another salesperson or executive struggling to set up complex and unnecessary inbound marketing software or build a content calendar for social posts that almost no one will see. Other times we hear that highly trained salespeople are being asked to write blog posts. Shiny object after shiny object, the sales team, even if it's just one person, is pulled away from building real relationships with her prospects. But distraction is not even the worst hazard social media marketing poses. Platform risk. Let's say that after lots of time and money, you get results from an ad funnel, search ranking, or a social community. Next comes platform risk. In an earlier era, maybe this risk was palatable, but now it often outweighs the potential rewards. The social giants are like cruel and unpredictable Old Testament gods. They giveth, and more often they taketh. There are many newsworthy examples of large companies being completely steamrolled by the social giants. One was Zynga, the publicly traded mobile game company that went public and is now a shell of its former self after running afoul of Facebook. Another is Mahalo, a user-generated search engine that Google torched in its rankings via the Pandem algorithm update, which led to more than 80 layoffs and the company's collapse. With big Silicon Valley downfalls, there are usually shades of gray and multiple sides to the story, but for every well-known account, there are dozens of smaller firms that face similar fates with whimpers instead of shouts. In my experience, I've seen many teams scramble, go through layoffs, and even file for bankruptcy due to rising click costs, declining search engine performance, algorithm changes, and other forms of unhedged platform risk. Thousands of content websites have been torched overnight via search algorithm changes and updates, and countless businesses that worked for years to rank had their lunches given away to advertisers who paid for the pleasure of top rankings. Just try Googling almost any given need and see how far you have to scroll before you hit organic, non-advertised results. Many marketers painstakingly build social communities and groups only to see certain tech giants switch gears to ad-based models, making it prohibitively expensive to communicate with the audiences they work so hard to build. The list goes on, and since platform-related upheaval is happening with increasing frequency, it would be naive to call any given incident isolated. All that said, if you can't beat them, join them. Why not just pay to play and buy ads? After all, markets center on risk and reward, and sometimes taking platform risk is worth it. Just ask the e-commerce businesses racking up millions on Amazon at the time of this recording. With the returns from platforms, more and more are not commensurate with the risk. Buying ads might pay off for a while, but as media markets mature, advertising costs become hard to stomach for many businesses. If your paid ad spends are paying off today, they might not tomorrow as more competitors shuffle into your space. As demand for eyeballs increases and as the click auction gets crowded, winner-take-all dynamics kick in, and after a while, the whales are the only ones who can afford to sit at the table. Even if you improve your conversion rate, you eventually pay more for ads and you don't see the profit. It simply flows through your P&L straight into the tech giants' coffers. Social networks now shift and change policies faster than ever as they scramble to maintain market share with competing platforms and deal with political forces surrounding privacy and other issues. One example is the Apple iOS 14 update, when the company curtailed advertisers' ability to track users, resulting in skyrocketing advertising costs, perhaps justifiably. The big tech companies are not going away, but we should look at them soberly. You have to ask, is it worth keeping all of your eggs in someone else's basket over a long time horizon? Giving a big share of marketing dollars to outside companies might be hard to avoid for many consumer brands, but is this the right route for your business? It's time to recover from the hangover and focus on building long-term revenue channels that you actually own and control. Instead of me giving you tips on where to buy cheap plywood and recycled bricks so you can build a flimsy Arrested Development style track home, I want you to put down this book knowing how to construct an old stone mansion that will last for centuries and weather any storm. Why you should focus 80% of your efforts on outbound. When I see the song and dance many organizations do before actually reaching out to a prospect they can help, it reminds me of that scene in Raiders of the Lost Ark, where our hero, Indiana Jones, comes face to face with a sword-brandishing enemy. The viewer expects a lengthy hand-to-hand battle, but in surprising comic fashion, true to the film's B-movie vibe, Indiana reacts by coolly and casually shooting the enemy dead. What if you are twirling a sword around when you could be pulling out a revolver? But first, a disclaimer. Outbound is not the best match for everyone. If you sell to consumers or small businesses, it's possible you will need a much higher volume of prospects than outreach can furnish in order to sustain your relatively low-priced product or service. Since you are selling to a large market, ad funnels, advertising, and other mass market mediums might be a better fit. Targeted outreach works best for businesses selling to other businesses that have a client lifetime value of at least $20,000 as a rough rule of thumb. That's because you need a big enough pot of gold at the end of the rainbow to fund not only the resources you invest in outreach, but also the time a highly skilled closer must spend with slower moving prospects. More on that in part 5. If you're in this boat and you sell a big ticket offering, it's probable that what you sell is not for mass consumption and that your total addressable market, or TAM, is relatively small. While your potential customers are limited, the upside is big. You can get to know just about everyone. What would it mean for your growth if you could build relationships with your market deliberately today instead of waiting for them to maybe someday stumble upon you? The case for email. If you're excited to build relationships proactively with your prospects, and even if you've tried outreach in the past with limited results, your first question probably surrounds which channels to use. While the channel matters, when you're able to combine personalization and scale effectively, as we will cover how to do in parts 2 and 3, it's less important and you will generate meaningful opportunities whether your prospect consumes your messaging via email, LinkedIn, or passenger pigeon. Still, we have to pick a channel, and there are a few good reasons to focus on email as your first point of contact. First, let's admit the obvious rub. We are all bogged down and fatigued by the ever-expanding weight of our inboxes, and the channel might seem less sexy and compelling than other sales and marketing mediums. That said, here is why email is your best starting place. Number 1, you own your audience. Email is based on shared protocols like SMTP, POP3, and IMAP that no one owns. While tech companies can affect which messages get through, the channel functions based on the assumption that all users must send and receive communications from parties they do not know. This all means you have a lot more ownership over when, where, and how you communicate with your audience. Number 2, tried and true. Since its inception in 1978, email, for better or worse, has enjoyed an ever-growing presence in our professional and personal lives, and it shows no sign of losing traction. According to Statista, the global email marketing space was valued at $7.5 billion in 2020 and is projected to increase to $17.9 billion by 2027. Number 3, email can reach anyone. Below are a few examples of contacts, albeit anonymized, we've built relationships with for clients over the years via one single message. And if I could reveal them, these are names your grandmother would know. The founder and CEO of a Big Four tech company, the CEO of one of the largest global retailers, the co-founder and movie-portrayed star of a prolific Silicon Valley firm, a famous Hall of Fame football player. Beyond that, there are countless news stories of everyday people building meaningful relationships with presidents and global celebrities by simply lobbing the right words and address into the compose box. Number 4, the inbox is where we go to make plans and do business. Our digital calendars, planners, and CRMs are at our fingertips when we process email, which greases the wheels for securing sales meetings. On the other hand, social channels are where we go to meander through memes and articles when we're bored. What about the other outreach channels? You might be wondering how email compares to other common sales outreach channels. Here's some context. Direct mail. Direct mail or snail mail can be powerful when done right. It's a costly signal that can pique your prospect's interest. That said, it's expensive and time-consuming to manage, so it's probably not your best starting point. LinkedIn. Connecting on LinkedIn is a best practice, and as a data source, the network is second to none. But the platform is noisy and spammy, you don't own the audience, and there are ever-expanding restrictions on how you can communicate with your prospects there. Phone. The phone is useful once you've had an exchange with a prospect, as we will cover later. But cold calling mid to large companies is often counterproductive due to technical barriers and gatekeepers. When we receive a call from an unknown number, we assume it's spam, as it usually is. But after an email exchange, the caller's number syncs to our mobile inboxes and brings up a name we at least vaguely know, increasing the likelihood that we accept the call. All parties involved in cold calling, salespeople and prospects alike, absolutely hate it. So maybe it's time to try something else? Beyond those common mediums, there are portfolio websites, ratings and review indexes, as well as social media platforms existing and yet to be invented that allow you to share work and ideas. Many platforms can be useful for building a closer connection with prospects or presenting work once you've built a relationship, but email enjoys unmatched power to put strangers in touch for the first time. Channel aside, unfortunately, around half of complex service companies do little to no prospecting at all, leaving new business to chance, and the other half conducts outreach in an annoying and ineffective way, ruining it for everyone else. Part 2 will teach you how balancing two opposing forces will empower you to consistently convert skeptical prospects, and you will learn from copy and tangible examples. Thank you for listening to this section of my book, Relationship Sales at Scale. This and the next subsequent sections are going to be dripped out each week over the next however many weeks we have left, and they'll be available for a limited time. Or if you'd like to get access to the Audible version in its entirety or whatever format you prefer, you can do that by clicking below on the Amazon link. Thanks so much and stay tuned next week for the next section.